Here is a number nobody tells you when you're starting out. 78. That is the percentage of Americans living paycheck to paycheck. Not the poor, not the unhoused, workers, people with jobs, people with cars and Netflix subscriptions at a decent credit score. People who, by every visible measure, look like they are doing fine. And yet, one bad month, one medical bill, one layoff, one busted transmission, and it all starts to slide. So what is actually happening? Is it just overspending? Not saving enough? Poor discipline? No, it is more interesting than that, and considerably more depressing. Because the middle class is not just struggling, it is being systematically harvested. Not through some dark conspiracy, just through a series of perfectly legal, brilliantly designed financial products that were engineered very deliberately to keep money flowing away from you and towards someone else. This is the story of how that works, trap by trap. Let us start with the most obvious one, credit cards. Before you roll your eyes, stay with me, because most people think they understand credit cards. They do not. The average American household carries roughly $7,200 in credit card debt, at an average interest rate of around 21%. That means the typical family is paying somewhere between $1,200 and $1,500 per year in pure interest, just for the privilege of having already spent money. That is not a design flaw, that is the product. Credit card companies have spent billions of dollars figuring out the exact minimum payment that keeps you in debt as long as possible, while still feeling like you are making progress. That little line on your statement, the one that says if you pay only the minimum, you will be debt-free in 2041, that is not a warning, that is a business plan. And here's where it gets almost elegant in a deeply cynical way. The rewards programs, the cash back, the airline miles, the points that expire if you forget to use them by February. Those rewards are not funded out of generosity, they're funded by the people who carry balances. The math is not complicated. High-income users who pay in full every month cost the bank money. So the reward ecosystem is essentially a transfer of wealth, from the people who cannot afford to pay in full to the people who can. The middle class pays the interest, the wealthy collect the miles. But credit cards are just the entry point, because once you're in debt, an entire ecosystem activates around you. Car loans, student loans, home equity lines, buy now, pay later, medical payment plans. Each one offers the same intoxicating pitch. Get the thing now, deal with the cost later. And it works, brilliantly, because human beings are psychologically wired to prefer immediate rewards over future pain. Every financial product aimed at the middle class exploits this single feature of the human brain. It is not manipulation exactly, it's just design. Very, very good design. Speaking of cars, the average new car in America now costs over $48,000. The average monthly payment on a new car loan is around $730. The average loan term is creeping towards 72 months. That is 6 years. 6 years of payments on something that lost 20% of its value the moment you drove it off the lot. Something that will be functionally obsolete, mechanically suspect, and culturally embarrassing before you have finished paying for it. Now, the car industry will tell you people want more. Bigger screens, heated steering wheels, panoramic roofs, and sure, fair enough. But notice what they never advertise. They never say the price. They say the monthly payment. That shift, it's not accidental. When you shop by monthly payment instead of total cost, you stop thinking about what the thing actually costs. You just ask yourself, can I handle $680 a month? And suddenly a $45,000 vehicle feels completely reasonable, even responsible. Meanwhile, the actual cost of car ownership, insurance, maintenance, registration, depreciation, fuel, runs between $10,000 and $12,000 per year for a new vehicle. That is $1,000 a month, gone, for something that sits in a parking lot 22 hours a day. The middle class is not buying transportation. They are buying status, and they are financing it at interest. And the dealership, the bank, and the insurance company are all clipping coupons on the way out the door. Here is the quiet irony. The wealthy buy used cars, or they buy assets that pay for cars. The middle class buys the shiny new thing and then works to service the debt on it. The financial system does not judge you for this. It quietly applauds. Now here is the trap that will genuinely irritate people because it is sacred. Homeownership, the cornerstone of the American dream, the thing every financial advisor, every parent, every well-meaning uncle at Thanksgiving has told you is the surest path to building real wealth. And it is not entirely wrong, but it is not the full story either. Here's what actually happens when you buy a house. You take out a $400,000 mortgage at 7% interest over 30 years. Your monthly payment is roughly $2,660. Over the life of that loan, you will pay approximately $558,000 in interest alone. Not principal, just interest. The bank collects more money than the house originally cost. Now, yes, the house might appreciate, property values do tend to rise, but when you adjust for inflation, the real return on residential real estate has historically been close to zero, about 1% per year above inflation, according to economist Robert Scheller, who spent decades studying precisely this question. The house feels like it doubled in value, but so did the groceries, the gas, and the rent in the next town over. You did not get richer. Everything just got more expensive together. And meanwhile, you are paying property taxes, maintenance that averages 1 to 2% of the home's value per year, HOA fees if you live somewhere with a pool nobody uses, insurance, the furniture for all those rooms you are now responsible for keeping clean and heated. None of this means renting is better. Renting has its own traps. But the universal confident advice, buy a house, it always goes up, rent is throwing money away, is a far messier truth than it sounds at the kitchen table. The people selling you the mortgage are not interested in the nuance. The commission closes when you sign. Here is something that happens quietly to almost everyone. You get a raise, you feel good, you deserve it. So you move to the nicer apartment, you get a better car, you start eating out more, you say yes to the vacation you kept postponing. Economists call this lifestyle inflation. Psychologists call it hedonic adaptation. Everyone else just calls it living your life. The mechanism is simple. When income rises, spending rises at roughly the same rate. Not because people are reckless, because your reference points shift. You are now surrounded by people who earn what you earn. The $14 cocktail stops feeling indulgent. The business class upgrade starts feeling necessary. The granite countertops become the baseline, not the upgrade. And here's the specific cruelty of it. Your savings rate stays flat or shrinks even as your income climbs. You earn more, you feel like you are doing well, but the gap between income and savings barely moves. The personal finance industry knows this, which is why they invented the concept of paying yourself first. Automate the savings before you see the money, because if you see it, you will spend it. That is not a moral failing. That is just how the brain processes abundance. But very few people do it, and the financial industry is not exactly holding fundraisers to encourage them, because your spending is someone else's revenue. Now, let us talk about something that gets less attention than it deserves: fees. Not the dramatic fees, not the predatory payday loan fees, the quiet ones, the ones buried in the fine print of products that are sold as responsible, even virtuous. Your 401k, your mutual fund, your index fund. Most employer-sponsored retirement accounts carry annual fees of somewhere between 0.5 and 1.5% of assets. That sounds small. The word percent has a remarkable ability to make things sound small. Here's what it actually means. Imagine you save $500 a month for 30 years at a 7% average return. With no fees, you end up with roughly $567,000. With a 1% annual fee, you end up with around $453,000. The fee did not cost you $13,000, it cost you $114,000. That's a fee that ate 20% of your retirement. Vanguard founder John Bogle spent decades making this point. The investment industry does not create value, he argued, it transfers it from investors to intermediaries in tiny, nearly invisible percentages, compounded over decades. He was not popular at industry conferences. The good news is that low-cost index funds exist and are genuinely better for most investors than almost anything else available. The bad news is that they're often buried in the options menu, below the actively managed funds with the impressive sounding names and the four-color brochures. Nobody's making a commission selling you the boring, cheap fund. Let us escalate slightly. The entire middle class financial strategy, the one implicitly promoted by every bank, every car commercial, every mortgage broker, every employer benefits package, follows a very specific script. Go to college, take on student debt because it is an investment in yourself, get a job, finance a car because you need transportation, buy a house because rent is throwing money away, contribute to your 401k at least enough to get the match, spend the rest. Repeat for 40 years. Retire at 65 if the market cooperates. This is not a path to wealth. It is a path to stability, barely, if nothing goes wrong. And things always go wrong, because built into this script are three massive vulnerabilities that nobody puts in the brochure. The first is that it requires decades of continuous employment with no major interruptions. One serious illness, one industry collapse, one divorce, one economic recession at the wrong moment in your career, and the whole timeline falls apart. The second is that it outsources your financial future entirely to external systems: the housing market, the stock market, your employer's solvency, your government's solvency. The one thing you never truly own in this script is your own income stream. The third vulnerability is the most uncomfortable one. The script was designed when the economy looked very different, when a single income could buy a house, when employer pensions existed, when a college degree cost 2 semesters of summer work. The math that made this script work in 1975 does not work in 2025, but nobody officially updated the script. So a generation is following advice that was true for their parents and mechanically applying it to a reality that has fundamentally changed. Here is where it gets genuinely strange. The middle class is, in a specific sense, the most heavily marketed to demographic on Earth, not the wealthiest, the middle class. Because the wealthy are few in number and already sorted, the genuinely poor have little discretionary income to extract. But the middle class is enormous, aspirational, creditworthy, and just financially insecure enough to be susceptible to the right bitch. Every major consumer industry is architected around this group. The car that is slightly out of reach but financeable, the vacation that you will pay off over 8 months, the kitchen renovation you fund with a home equity line, the private school tuition you charge to a card with rewards points, the gym membership you stop using but cannot bring yourself to cancel because canceling feels like admitting failure. Financial insecurity and consumer spending are not opposites, they're partners. People who feel financially behind do not spend less. They often spend more because spending feels like progress. The new suit for the job interview, the course that promises a raise, the investment account with the exciting interface that charges 1.2% annually. The financial anxiety is real. The products that promise to resolve it are often making it worse. Now, step all the way back because there's a bigger pattern here that is worth naming. Every single trap we have discussed shares one feature. In each one, the middle class is converting income into someone else's asset. Credit card debt converts your income into bank profit. Car payments convert your income into dealership revenue, bank interest, and depreciation. Mortgage interest converts your income into 30 years of bank profit before you own anything. Lifestyle inflation converts your income into quarterly earnings for consumer companies. High-fee investment products convert your retirement savings into fund manager salaries. In every case, money flows through your hands and accumulates somewhere else. The economic term for this is rent extraction. The informal term is the game being rigged. The accurate term is a system working exactly as designed. And here is the final layer of irony. The people escaping these traps are not smarter. They are not more disciplined. They mostly just recognize the traps early enough to route around them. low-cost index funds instead of managed accounts, used cars instead of new ones, houses bought below their means instead of at the maximum the bank would approve, income streams that do not depend entirely on a single employer. None of this is secret. It is all publicly available information. It is taught in no school. It is advertised by no industry. It is the opposite of what the entire consumer economy wants you to do. So here's the question to sit with. If the information exists, if the math is not complicated, if the traps are, once you see them, fairly visible, why do so many people fall into all of them every generation reliably at scale? Is it education? Is it culture? Is it the sheer relentlessness of a system that markets at you from every surface, every screen, every social feed, every peer relationship? Or is it something more uncomfortable, that the middle class is not falling into these traps by accident, but by design? And that design is maintained by the people with the money to keep it exactly as it is. There's probably no clean answer to that, but it is worth knowing what the question actually is.